In the stillness of the early morning, where the world is still asleep, a single figure stands in the fog, the haunting silhouette of a horse named Rusty. Once the pride of his owner's stable, his body is now a shell of what it used to be. His coat is patchy, his ribs visible, and his once glowing eyes now dull with exhaustion. Rusty, abandoned and broken, waits for something he's not sure will ever come. Hope. But just as the day begins to rise, so does the chance for a new beginning. The rusted barn creaks in the wind, a sad reminder of the neglect that surrounds him. Rusty's legs shake with each painful step he takes, his once graceful movements reduced to a shuffle. Every muscle in his body aches. Every bone feels the weight of years without care. The field before him stretches wide and empty, just like his heart. But in the depths of his despair, there's a flicker, a memory of the horse he once was and the life he once led. He used to run freely, full of strength and pride. But now he stands alone, the sounds of the world around him fading away. The only thing left is his constant longing for a second chance, a way out of the darkness. Rusty's story wasn't always one of pain. Years ago, he was the star of horse shows, his sleek coat and powerful stride winning the admiration of everyone who saw him. He was treated like a king, adored by his owner, and given the best of everything. But as quickly as the good times came, they vanished. His owner's fortunes dwindled, and Rusty was sold off, left in the hands of someone who didn't see his worth. The barn where he now lives is far from the glitzy arenas where he once shined. No one notices him anymore. No one cares. Rusty's days of glory are over, and he's been forgotten, abandoned to suffer in silence. But the story doesn't end there. Because even a horse like Rusty, beaten by life, has a heart that still believes. There's something in him that refuses to give up. Beneath the layers of neglect, Rusty is more than just a horse. He's a living being, full of memories, emotions, and the longing for a better life. He remembers the touch of loving hands, the sound of laughter as he raced across the arena, the joy of being noticed, appreciated, and loved. Though his spirit is bruised, it's not broken. And perhaps, just perhaps, someone will come into his life, someone who will see beyond the surface, beyond the dirt and the neglect, and recognize the beauty and the worth that still lies within him. Rusty isn't just a forgotten animal. He's a soul waiting for a second chance. And his story is far from over. Meet Emily, a woman whose soul seems to be made of quiet strength and compassion. From the outside, she might seem like any other country woman, a bit worn, a bit weathered, but it's her heart that truly sets her apart. With a deep love for animals that runs through her veins, Emily is a woman of action, not words. Her everyday attire of a faded leather jacket, well-worn boots, and thick gloves tells you she's someone who's been working with animals for years, caring for them, loving them, and healing them. Her home isn't a mansion. It's a modest cottage surrounded by fields where she tends to the few animals she's managed to rescue. But despite its simplicity, it is a place where hope thrives. She doesn't have a lot of money to spare, nor does she have a fancy horse ranch with acres of land. But what she does have is a deep, unshakable connection to the animals who need her most. And then she hears about Rusty. Rusty's name circulates among animal rescues in the area. His story is one of neglect, abuse, and endless days of suffering. Rusty's once bright eyes have grown dull. His once strong frame has become weak, and the spirit that once lived in him seems to have faded. But Emily doesn't see a broken horse when she hears about him. She sees a chance, Another life waiting to be saved. Another heart that needs to be healed. She's been here before, but something about this case feels different. Maybe it's the urgency in the voice of the caller, or maybe it's the undeniable pull that tells her she has to act. Now. Emily's gaze softens as she remembers her own childhood. Her first horse, named Charlie, was the one creature who stood by her through everything, through the loneliness of growing up, through the tough times when she felt like the world didn't care. Charlie was more than just a horse to her. He was her friend, her protector, and when he passed away unexpectedly, it left a hole in her heart that never fully healed. Since then, Emily has devoted her life to rescuing horses, knowing that there are others out there who need love just as much as she did. But she never anticipated that her next rescue would hit so close to home. Rusty reminds her of Charlie, of the pain that animals feel when they are abandoned, left to suffer in isolation. And for Emily, that kind of abandonment is something she simply can't stand to witness. For Emily, rescue isn't about being a hero, it's about healing. It's about showing animals that no matter how far they've fallen, there is always a chance for redemption. She knows all too well how it feels to be lost, to feel like there is no way out of the darkness. It's not just her personal loss of Charlie that fuels her drive. It's also the pain she's seen in the eyes of the countless animals she's rescued, each one carrying its own story of neglect or abuse. Emily is no stranger to hardship. Growing up in a small town with little money, she had to fight for every opportunity. Her family wasn't wealthy, but what they lacked in wealth, they made up for in love. Her connection to animals wasn't something she could explain. It was a bond she had with them that went deeper than anything else. She understood their pain because, in many ways, it mirrored her own. The loneliness, the hurt, the feeling of being unseen, she knew it all. But Emily also knows what it feels like to rise above it. And that's why she does this work. To help others, whether human or animal, find their way back to joy. Her small but impactful rescue work has brought healing to both animals and people alike. She's seen it before. The way an animal's eyes can light up again, how a gentle touch or a few quiet words can mend broken spirits. But what sets Emily apart is her absolute belief in second chances. She doesn't give up on the animals that others see as lost causes, because she's been in that place herself. When Emily learns about Rusty, she isn't deterred by the challenge ahead. She knows it won't be easy. In fact, she expects it to be one of the hardest rescues of her life. Rusty's body is frail and battered, his spirit seemingly broken. But Emily's faith in the power of love and care is unwavering. She's rescued countless horses, but there's something special about Rusty, a silent plea in his eyes that calls out to her. For Emily, this rescue is more than just a mission. It's a calling. Her own pain, her own scars, have taught her how important it is to show someone, even an animal, that they are worth saving. She knows that Rusty's story is not just about him, it's about every animal who has ever been left to suffer, every creature who has ever been forgotten. It's her mission to show them that someone cares, someone is willing to fight for them. Emily's resolve grows stronger with every passing day, as she gathers the courage to bring Rusty back from the brink. She's determined to give him a future that's filled with love, trust, and the possibility of healing. And in doing so, she hopes to remind Rusty and herself that even the broken can be made whole again. It was an overcast day, the kind that made everything feel a little heavier. And as Emily drove down the dirt path to the rundown farm, her heart pounded with a mixture of hope and dread. She had heard the rumors, seen the photos, the horse she was about to meet, Rusty, had been abandoned, mistreated, and left to rot. And now, she was the last chance. When she first laid eyes on him, she couldn't hold back a gasp. Rusty stood there, his coat dull and patchy, his body emaciated from months, maybe years of neglect. His eyes, once vibrant, now held the kind of sadness that only comes from betrayal. Betrayal by the one creature who should have been his protector, a human. Rusty was a horse who had lost hope in the world, and when he noticed Emily approaching, there was no warmth in his gaze, only suspicion. Every step she took toward him, he took one back. He wasn't just scared, he was broken, and the pain of that was written all over his body. "Hey, boy," Emily whispered, her voice soft but firm, but it didn't reach him. Instead, his ears flicked back, a clear warning. Rusty didn't want to trust, didn't want to hope again. But Emily didn't give up. She slowly dropped to one knee, looking at him through calm, gentle eyes. "I'm here to help, Rusty," she said, letting the silence speak for itself. She knew it would take time for him to understand. She had to prove to him that not all humans were like those who had let him suffer. This moment, this first encounter, would be the beginning of something life-changing for them both. Getting close to Rusty was like trying to breach a fortress. Every time Emily took a step, he'd take one back, eyes wide in panic, his body trembling. She could see it in every part of him, the deep-rooted fear. She could almost hear his thoughts. "Is this another person who's going to hurt me?" The more she tried to reach out, the more he pulled away. Rusty wasn't just afraid of her touch. He was terrified of the world around him. His scars weren't just physical. They were emotional, burned deep into his soul. Every attempt to connect felt like an uphill battle. Emily was struggling, but she wasn't backing down. She refused to give up on him. She had dealt with rescue animals before, but there was something about Rusty, something that made it feel like he was fighting her every step of the way. He wouldn't let her in. He didn't trust. But Emily wasn't here for a quick fix. She knew healing took time, and she was willing to wait. She stayed close, but at a distance, letting him take the lead. It was his journey, his decision to trust her or not. She just had to be patient, understanding, and there for him when he was ready. And then, after what felt like an eternity, it happened. Rusty, who had been running from her, stopped. He looked at her with something different in his eyes, a hint of curiosity, of hope. His body remained tense, but there was a shift. He was watching her now, not with fear, but with a sliver of trust. In that moment, Emily took a deep breath and slowly extended her hand, her heart racing. She didn't move a muscle, waiting for him to decide if he was going to take that leap. Rusty took a step forward, his hooves dragging through the dirt as he approached her hand. It was almost as if he was testing her, unsure if this was another trick. Then, it happened. Rusty's nose brushed against her palm, soft and trembling. Emily's heart nearly stopped. It wasn't much, just a touch, but it was everything. Rusty had chosen to let her in. "Good boy," Emily whispered, tears welling in her eyes. It wasn't a victory yet, not by far, but it was the beginning of the healing process. For the first time, she felt the possibility of a future together. But just as quickly as the connection had sparked, Rusty pulled away. He jerked his head back, his body stiff with distrust. Emily's hand hovered in the air for a moment, her chest tightening. She understood. He wasn't ready to fully let go of the fear. He had been hurt too many times to just trust anyone that easily. But Emily wasn't deterred. She'd been here before with other animals, those who had been abandoned, neglected, or broken, and she knew that their journey wasn't linear. There would be setbacks. There would be moments of doubt. But that one moment, when Rusty had come close, was enough to give her hope. She didn't try to force him this time. She stepped back, giving him space, knowing that forcing him to trust too soon would only push him further away. She would wait. She had to. She stood there, watching him, hoping that the little spark of trust they had kindled would grow into something more. Rusty's road to healing wouldn't be easy, but Emily knew, with every fiber of her being, that it was possible. And she would be there every step of the way, no matter how long it took. The struggle was far from over, but this was their first step together. And it was a step toward something beautiful. A bond that could heal not just Rusty, but her too. The first signs of change came slowly, almost imperceptibly, like a flicker of light in the darkness. Rusty, who had once avoided Emily at all costs, began to approach her on his own. It wasn't much, a step here, a glance there, but it was progress. At first, it was just his eyes that softened when she entered the barn. The fear wasn't as sharp. Instead of darting to the back corner when Emily came near, Rusty would stop, his head slightly tilted, watching her with a curiosity that hadn't been there before. Emily couldn't contain her excitement. Every day she worked with him, teaching him trust, offering kindness with every gesture. She knew he wasn't ready to be ridden yet, but that wasn't her goal. Her goal was for him to trust her enough to let her into his world. Little by little, they built a connection, a bond that, over time, would become the foundation of Rusty's recovery. One morning, after weeks of patience, Emily entered the barn with the same calm presence she had always had. As she approached Rusty, she expected him to shy away, but instead, he stood still, his head lowered in a sign of surrender. It was subtle, but in that moment, Emily knew that Rusty was starting to trust her. She knelt down, offering him a carrot. His eyes flicked from the treat to her face, and then, slowly, as if testing the waters, he took a cautious step forward. Emily held her breath, her heart pounding in her chest. And then, with a delicate motion, Rusty nuzzled her hand and took the carrot. The tears came, unbidden, as Emily realized what this moment meant. It wasn't just about feeding him, it was about the trust that was finally blossoming. Rusty was starting to let go of his past, and in doing so, was finding a new beginning. Rusty's unexpected progress didn't stop at the small moments of trust. Over the next few weeks, Emily saw changes she hadn't thought possible. Each day, his eyes became less clouded with fear and more filled with a quiet strength. He began to seek her out, no longer just responding to her actions, but actively looking for her presence. Emily would walk into the barn, and Rusty would nudge her shoulder, his way of saying, "I'm here, and I want you near." The transformation wasn't just emotional, it was physical too. Rusty's body, once so frail, began to show signs of recovery. His coat, once patchy and dull, began to shine. The hollow look in his face slowly turned into something more lively, something full of life. The weight that had been lost over the months, or perhaps years, began to return. With every day of love and care, Rusty's body became stronger, and his spirit followed. But the real turning point came when Emily was able to get him to walk again, something she never thought she would see. The first time she led him out into the paddock, Rusty hesitated. His legs were weak, his movements awkward. But Emily kept her voice calm, her steps steady, encouraging him without pushing him too hard. And then, something incredible happened. Rusty took his first step toward the open field. It wasn't a perfect stride. His gait was unsteady, but it was enough. Rusty, the horse who had once been too weak to stand, was walking again. Emily felt a rush of emotion flood over her, a mixture of relief, pride, and disbelief. This wasn't just a horse taking steps, it was a soul rising from the ashes, a miracle unfolding before her eyes. As the weeks passed, Rusty's physical recovery continued to surprise everyone, especially Emily. She had seen horses in worse condition before, but never one with such a strong spirit to survive. Rusty's transformation wasn't just about regaining strength, it was about rediscovering the will to live. His body was now lean and muscular, his coat gleaming with health. Every time Emily saw him running across the field, his mane flying in the wind, it was like watching a miracle in motion. She would often sit by the fence, watching him gallop around, her heart swelling with joy. The horse, who once couldn't move without pain, was now running free. But it wasn't just his physical appearance that had changed, it was his confidence. He was no longer the fearful broken horse hiding from the world. Rusty had blossomed into a proud animal, standing tall, head held high. He was no longer just surviving, he was living. He had found his strength again. Emily knew that Rusty's transformation wasn't just about getting him physically healthy. It was about giving him the freedom to be the horse he was meant to be. And, for the first time, she truly believed that he was ready for the next step of his journey. Rusty's transformation was nothing short of a miracle, a story of survival, of trust, and of the healing power of love. It was the beginning of a new chapter for both him and Emily. And the best part? This was just the beginning. After months of rebuilding trust, Emily felt it was time to give Rusty his first real test. The time had come for him to prove just how far he had come. It wasn't going to be easy, but Emily had faith. Rusty had already defied the odds. He had shown resilience, courage, and an incredible will to live. Now, he needed to show that he was ready for the next step, riding. Emily saddled Rusty up carefully, taking her time to ensure he felt comfortable. Every movement was deliberate. There was no rushing this process. She knew that this moment would either be a breakthrough or a setback. But Emily believed in Rusty. She knew that after all they had been through together, they were ready. As Emily gently placed her foot in the stirrup and swung her leg over his back, she held her breath. Rusty tensed for a split second, a small flicker of fear still lingering from his past. But Emily didn't push him. She gave him a moment to adjust, whispering soft words of encouragement into his ear. Slowly, Rusty began to relax. His body, once rigid and hesitant, now carried a sense of calm confidence. With every passing second, the two of them became more connected. Emily and Rusty weren't just a rider and a horse. They were a team. The moment Rusty took his first step with Emily on his back was nothing short of magical. It wasn't just a test of his physical ability. It was a test of their bond, a testament to how far they had come together. Rusty moved forward, and Emily guided him with a steady hand, speaking gently to him. It wasn't the fastest walk, nor the smoothest, but it was a victory in its purest form. For Rusty, this was a triumph. Not only had he overcome the scars of his past, but he was also taking control of his future. He wasn't a broken horse anymore. He was strong, he was capable, and he was ready. The real emotional moment came when Rusty turned around and looked back at Emily. For the first time, his eyes weren't filled with fear, they were filled with trust, with understanding. The pain of his past was still there, deep down, but it no longer controlled him. He had found peace, a quiet strength that came from the bond they shared. As Rusty took another step, Emily felt tears welling up in her eyes. The joy of seeing him take this first step wasn't just about the physical achievement. It was about everything they had been through together. It was the culmination of months of hard work, patience, and love. And it wasn't just Rusty who had changed, Emily had too. She had learned to be patient, to trust, and to believe in the impossible. When Rusty moved confidently forward, Emily felt her heart swell. She knew that this wasn't just a ride, it was a symbol of their journey together. Rusty had gone from a broken, fearful animal to a strong, thriving horse. And it was all thanks to the love and dedication Emily had poured into him. As Emily and Rusty moved together, the world seemed to fade away. It was just the two of them, as they had always been. There was no past, no pain, just the present moment of triumph. It wasn't just a horse finding his strength, it was a story of survival, redemption, and the unbreakable bond between a woman and the horse she had saved. As they finished their ride, Emily dismounted, her hands trembling. She wrapped her arms around Rusty's neck, whispering words of thanks. Tears streamed down her face. But this time, they were tears of gratitude. Rusty had come a long way, and in that moment, Emily knew that together, they could conquer anything. After all the challenges and setbacks, after every sleepless night spent tending to Rusty's wounds and fears, Emily's triumph was finally within her grasp. It wasn't just the culmination of months of hard work. It was the realization of a dream she had fought for every single day. She had not only rescued a horse, but she had also helped him rediscover his worth, his strength, and his purpose. The day had arrived for Emily to take Rusty into the arena for his first big challenge since his transformation. The crowd of spectators stood in awe, unaware of the incredible journey this horse had been on. Rusty wasn't just another competitor in the ring, he was a living testament to resilience, to the power of love, and to the healing force of second chances. Emily took a deep breath as she mounted him one last time before the event. This was the final test, the one that would show the world just how far Rusty had come. Her heart raced, but she remained calm. This was the moment they had both been waiting for. Rusty was ready, and so was she. They had both learned to trust again. Rusty in his own strength, and Emily in his potential. With a gentle nudge of her heels, Rusty stepped forward, his movements smooth and confident. The crowd gasped as they watched the once-broken horse glide across the arena. Emily's heart swelled with pride. She knew Rusty's heart wasn't just beating for this moment. It was beating for every moment they had fought through together. As Emily guided Rusty through the course, it became clear to everyone watching that this was no ordinary horse. Rusty wasn't just performing, he was soaring. Every jump, every turn, was executed with grace, a reflection of the bond he had with Emily. The crowd cheered, but for Emily, the sound of their applause didn't compare to the feeling of Rusty's steady rhythm beneath her. This wasn't just a competition. This was his rebirth. Rusty's transformation wasn't just about overcoming his past. It was about reclaiming his life. He had gone from a terrified animal to a bold competitor, with the heart of a champion. Emily's belief in him had never wavered, and now they were both reaping the rewards of their unwavering commitment. As they crossed the final jump and Rusty landed gracefully, Emily could hardly believe her eyes. This horse, her horse, had done it. He had overcome his fears, his scars, and his past. And now he stood proudly in the spotlight, a symbol of hope for anyone who believed in the impossible. As Emily and Rusty walked off the arena floor, they were greeted with cheers and applause. But for Emily, none of it mattered. It wasn't the crowd's approval that mattered. It was the quiet moment between her and Rusty. As she dismounted, and wrapped her arms around his neck. She whispered the words that had been in her heart all along. "We did it." Rusty nuzzled her gently, as if to say, "No, we did this together." This was just the beginning. The victory in the arena was only a small part of their journey. The true success was in the bond they had built, the trust they had formed, and the love they had found in each other. Emily had rescued a horse, yes, but Rusty had rescued her in ways she could never fully express. Together, they had created a new beginning, one where fear no longer controlled them, where their pasts no longer defined them. Rusty was no longer the broken horse he once was. He was a hero in his own right. And Emily was no longer just the woman who saved him. She was his partner, his champion, his family. The road ahead would be full of new challenges, but Emily and Rusty were ready. Together, they had faced the hardest battles, and together they would face whatever came next. The world didn't know their story yet, but soon they would share it with everyone. The miracle wasn't just in Rusty's transformation, it was in the power of their unbreakable bond. Their new beginning had only just begun. Rusty's incredible journey is a reminder of the resilience and strength that animals possess, even when faced with unimaginable pain and hardship. It's a reminder that sometimes all they need is a chance to heal, to trust again, and to shine. Just like Rusty, there are countless animals out there in need of a second chance. They might not have a voice, but they rely on us to speak for them. If you've been touched by Rusty's story, remember that empathy for animals can change lives. Whether it's offering a kind word, a helping hand, or a loving home, we all have the power to make a difference. Every rescue, no matter how small, creates a ripple of hope in the world. If you're considering adopting or supporting an animal in need, take that step. You might just help write the next miracle story, just like Rusty's. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Rusty's transformation. What part of his journey touched you the most? Have you ever rescued an animal or experienced a story of transformation like this? Share your thoughts, your stories, or any tips you have for those looking to rescue animals in the comments below. If you believe in the power of second chances and the beauty of animal-human bonds, don't forget to like and share this video with others who need a reminder that miracles happen every day. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe for more heartwarming stories that remind us all to never give up on love, hope, and second chances. Together, we can spread awareness, empathy, and kindness to all creatures. Let's continue sharing the miracles that happen when we believe in the power of compassion.